Today's lecture will be about additive manufacturing. And with additive manufacturing is a very special technique that allows you to do rapid prototyping. We use the industry to be able to manufacture parts that are not otherwise possible to manufacture with other techniques. Let me give you an example. So if you have a particular valve that has very complex features internal to the valve, additive manufacturing can allow you to make those parts. There are other parts that could have internal features that you can't quite machine or provide support. With additive manufacturing, you can accomplish some of those features that are not feasible with traditional manufacturing approaches we have discussed in this course. So it is becoming very popular. Also, additive manufacturing provides you the ability to combine multiple parts together into one part. So in the past, you could have two flanges coming together, two parts being joined at a flange, but now with additive, there are ways to combine those two parts into one. That reduces part complexity, also allows you to do the ability to not only create a CAD design, but also transfer that quickly to the manufacturing of that part to do trial studies to see if the part comes out the way you expect. The beauty about additive manufacturing allows you for rapid design iterations that may take longer with other traditional techniques. At the end of this particular lecture, I'll cover from my experience in this area, working it for quite a bit, what I see as the issues with additive manufacturing, because not everything is great. There are some disadvantages with these techniques. So when I talk about additive manufacturing, it's not your traditional subtractive manufacturing where I give you a part and I'm going to machine the part to remove material to shape it into what I need. With additive manufacturing, you are performing the function of adding layer by layer material to manufacture the part. Typically, you're starting with a CAD model as a basis for it, and that CAD model needs to be configured in a way that you can actually make the part. With additive, because you have to have a layer to start with, there are some constraints about what you can manufacture. For example, if I want to put a layer of a T, like I want to create a T section, I say I want to create a letter T, it makes more sense to start with a base of the T to create the stem of the T, because otherwise you don't have a base to start from. If I start with the bottom of the T, which is thin, there's no real way you can actually add the top of the T, that line at the top, because there's nothing to support it. But there are methods that people have come up with and they use support systems. So the idea here is that traditional manufacturing, like machining, requires significant amount of time. But with rapid prototyping or additive manufacturing, there are ways to reduce that time scale to maybe hours or days. And they're all generated based on a CAD model. And prototyping, rapid prototyping is a subset of additive manufacturing in this context because rapid prototyping is used in the context of prototyping. But additive manufacturing is a more broader range of approaches that is used today, successfully today, in the area of manufacturing. And used quite a bit now in rocket engines, is used in launch vehicle providers. And these techniques have been adopted for cars and also aircraft applications. And I'll discuss some of the disadvantages with this approach towards the end. This is one of my areas of research and one of the areas I've worked on with industry to develop standards that can help us qualify these approaches for use in industry. So why is rapid prototyping so important? You have the ability to create a physical model based on a new part or product design rather than just having a computer model or a line drawing. So it really allows you to take that CAD model and transform it into a tangible product fairly quickly. And the idea here is that creating a prototype is really an integral step of the design. Like one of the beauties about additive manufacturing and or rapid prototyping in this context is that I have a CAD model. I can quickly generate a part to see if that part, the way it comes out, makes any sense whatsoever. And you can do that fairly quickly. That cycle is quick. Another thing that we talk about a lot in this context is virtual prototyping. So you're not maybe creating that part, but you're visualizing the CAD model. Another thing about being able to do a rapid prototype of a part is that you can actually see visually what could be the issues with the design. Because you can now tangibly look at the design, touch it, understand what's going on. And it's not like it's going to cost a lot of money because you can scale it down. So, for example, say that I'm going to create a part that's for 5 feet product. I can scale it down and look at a 15-inch product to understand how it looks like. However, such an approach has its disadvantages. You could have less defects in that smaller part rather than a larger part. However, it does give you advantage to understand how that part came out, what are the pitfalls, and what can you do to the CAD model, what modifications can be made so those issues do not arise when you actually go into the production program. So what are some of the steps that people look at when they're preparing the control instructions? I think many of you may be aware of how to deal with the G code at this point and how the G code is used to then provide instructions to the CNC machine, correct? So very similarly, you're going to be creating instructions on how the 3D printer is going to go about the printing process. And I really think that every engineer here should invest into not expensive printer, but one that you can buy for your home and kind of get familiar with that because it's not thousands of dollars. You can get one for a couple of $100. In fact, you should give yourself a gift of a 3D printer so you can kind of play with it and make parts even at home. So you can see how beneficial it is to take a 3D CAD model, transform it into a tangible product. So in this case, the steps to prepare this is that you want to design the component on a CAD system that can actually fit into the enclosed volume of the 3D printer. So you really want to make sure that your part can actually fit in there. And then the other part that we talk about a lot is making sure the CAD model is converted into computerized format. Typically, we'll have surfaces and facets. But the other one that is quite important is slicing the CAD model into layers. Those layers will become important, typically horizontal layers, because additive manufacturing is about adding layers on top of each other. Now, a lot of 3D printers now do a lot of these processes automated in an automated fashion. So here you can see an example of here I have a cup in this case, and I want to make this cup with the 3D printer type. Here's your handle bar and your handle. Here's your cup. Here's your slicing plane. And when I look at the slicing plane, I can see on part B what that looks like, how that cross section looks. So when you go layer by layer, like for example, in this particular slice, you can see the cross section here, and then you can see a cross section of the handle here. But as you're printing the part, one of the things we do in industry, not only we print the part that we're trying to produce or actually use, but on the side of that part, we also print, we call it witness sample, a part that you can test to see if the properties are coming out are the ones that you really need and are appropriate for the actual part. This is not discussed in the book, but I think it's a fair thing to bring up to your attention, particularly for high performing applications where I want to make sure that part strength is at the same level as what I need in application. So one more time, we can print a witness sample on the side along with a real part to make sure that I can then test that part along with a bigger part to ensure that the part has appropriate strength for the actual application. So here is an approach called material addition. In this case, you're using a liquid monomer that is cured into solid. And you're going to do that on a layer by layer basis. These solid sheets are laminated to create the solid part, and the molten materials are solidified layer by layer. And the powders are then aggregated and bonded layer by layer. I'll show a picture to kind of guide you through this process. So one of the approaches that people use is called stereolithography. SL is one of the approaches, one of the oldest approaches that exist. This is similar to the photoresist process that we discussed when we covered the integral circuits. But the rapid prototyping process for fabricating a solid part, it consists in using a photosensitive liquid polymer. And what you're going to do, you're going to use a laser beam on top that's going to be applied onto that liquid polymer, and that laser is going to solidify the part as needed. The part fabrication process there is, again, done on a layer by layer basis, and add it to the previous layer, like I discussed when I gave the example of the T. This approach was introduced in 1988 by the 3D Systems, or DDD, and it was based on the work by a scientist called Charles Hall. And in this image, it's the first image I showed, but I think it's kind of worth looking at this. What you have here at the very bottom is a liquid polymer on here at the bottom. And then here you have your elevator as lead screw, and this allows you to take this elevator to be able to move the part vertically according to what your needs are. And here you have your platform that's connected to this elevator, connected to a lead screw, which allows you to move it up and down. And then you have your laser beam, and this laser beam will also be able to move relative to that platform in the X and Y. So across the plate and then the other tangential direction. And then this laser is going to provide then a laser beam that's going to be then working on the liquid polymer. And it's going to be acting on the locations where you want to solidify the part. Only in those locations are you going to solidify that part. So here on the right, what I have is an example where you have these vertical columns being added. These were added layer by what you're going to do. You're going to take the elevator and you're going to apply a vertical motion downwards. So you can lower the platform and you're going to solidify the upper, small fraction of the liquid polymer. And that small fraction is going to now get solidified on top of this layer. That process continues until you create these 3 columns in this example problem. But again, this is a great example of that. I think in this case, it is worth watching this video. So if you don't mind, I want to do that in a second here. So let me do that. So when you look at this 1988, not 2015, you can see that some of these approaches that we use with SL tend to be for mock-ups and rapid prototyping. And in some cases, it can actually be used for a real application. Here's a part that was produced by SL system or 3D systems, and a very good approach to looking at various rapid prototypes fairly quickly. So what are the facts when it comes to SL system? Typically, each layer is very thin. It can be in the order of 0.005 millimeters or 0.02 inch to 0.06 inch thick. Now, if you have thinner layers, it can provide better resolution to that part, and it can actually provide more complex shapes if needed. However, if you go with smaller resolution, better resolution, it will take much longer to complete the part. In these cases, like I said before, the starting material tends to be liquid monomer, like I said before. And how you accomplish the polymerization process is to expose a UV light that's produced by that laser that we talked about. Now, that scanning speed that you're looking at here is fairly quick. You're looking at 500 millimeters per second. And you saw that in the video that we just discussed. Now, there are approaches to be able to apply masking, and the masking is provided by the DMD controller. DMD is the old name for what we discussed before with a digital light processor, DLP. But here you have your lens, this is your UV source, and then using the digital micro mirror device to ensure that through the imaging lens, you're only applying that laser to the locations where you do want to have the actual solidification process. So that's how you're accomplishing the masking there by being able to project that light in a particular way by blocking it. There's another approach called the laminated object manufacturing. In this case, you're stacking layers of sheet stock, and in each of these layers, you're outlining the cross-sectional shape of the CAD model, and then that's getting sliced and then applied to the next layer. And this has been used in plastics, making metals, and fiber reinforced materials. Usually, each sheet will have a adhesive backing paper or backing adhesive that allows that bonding process between the layers. And then after you cut, any excess materials are removed, or any build parts, any support material is removed to be able to then finalize the part. I'll show a picture here to kind of help you understand it. Here's your supply roll, and the roll is going from the left side in this example, and is moving towards from the right side is moving towards the left, and then here's one particular sheet. The laser is getting applied to be able to do the cut, And then here you can see the laminated block that I have already completed. At the bottom, that's your platform. And then here, I make my cut. And now that's going to stay there. Now I bring my next layer up and then continue to cut. And then things will start getting stacked. That's called the laminated object manufacturing. And it's additive as well. I view it very similar to an approach called AFP, or automated fiber placement. Very similar approach where you lay down fibers, you cut them, and then you apply more at different locations. Now, as I apply each of these sheet stocks, I need to adhere it to the next sheet stock. And to do that, the adhesive comes into play to build the bond adjacent layers together. Another one that's used quite a bit actually is called the fused deposition modeling. Here, what you're doing is, and it's actually very simple to understand, but you're extruding filament of wax or polymer from a plastic polymer onto an existing part surface. And here, what you're doing is you're completing each new layer. The workhead here, number one here, is getting controlled by a machine that's connected to the computer, that's connected to the CAD model. And typically, the solidification process occurs in an order of 0.1 seconds, and the part is fabricated on a layer by layer basis. This was introduced for the first time in the 1990s by Stratasys, and it is something that's used today, even to make parts for a lot of different applications. This particular process also has its disadvantages. I'll be talking about coming up towards the end of this lecture. Here's some examples of the parts, the kinds of parts you can make with the fused deposition modeling. And then here is a Stratasys Eden system and a MakerBot replicator. This MakerBot can be purchased for in-home use and has a pretty significant capability there. There's another approach called a three-dimensional printing, or 3DP. Here, what you're looking at is you're making a part and it's built using an inkjet printer, similar to what we discussed before. What it does, it ejects bonding material onto successive layers of powder. And that bonding material is causing the powders to fuse together. This binder is deposited in areas corresponding to the cross sections of the part, and is determined by slicing the CAD geometric model into the layers. In this case, the binder holds the powders together, like I said before, it forms that part. And then the parts where you don't have the bond applied, so that we call it unbonded parts, those get removed, or they're removed